Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. The Giants beat the Marlins today 4-1, and it was basically a bullpen day for them, which the fact they were able to hold the Marlins to 1 run on such a day is not to be taken for granted at all, especially considering that Sean Manaea went 3 2/3 scoreless innings. And with the way he's pitched previously this year, I mean, that you can't take that for granted, and maybe that is kind of a new role for him, and maybe it will work kind of long-term going forward if he just doesn't immediately come in facing the opposing team's best hitters, but maybe pitches behind an opener. I just don't know if that's going to be a strategy in terms of using him going forward, but in any case, he was really good today. On the offensive side, in the first inning, the Giants got all 4 of their runs. J.D. Davis had an RBI double, and then Michael Conforto homered. So you still see all of that power coming through for the Giants. After today's win, they stand at 23 wins and 24 losses. So they've just about caught up in their record. And there were a couple other times this season where they got really close to coming back from what was just a really bad start to the season. They were really close to it a couple of times, but as of, it just kind of petered out, and they kind of got behind again. Now they've just had dramatic last week, and now they've started this one with a win over the, I'm sorry, I guess I said Marlins at the beginning of this. It's the Twins that they beat. I'm sorry, I guess that came out because of the weekend series, but it was the Twins that they beat them. I'm glad I caught that. Giants beat the Twins 4-1 today. But yeah, they stand at 23 and 24, so with a win tomorrow, they could tie their record up and at least get back into this, get a look, Now, just looking at the standpoint of right now and all that, the question arises like, well, what is the best recent season that this one might be kind of comparable to, and what would need to go differently? And it's something I've talked a little bit about in the past. The real answer, of course, is that there's probably no season that we can really compare this one to, because every season is a unique one. Although we have seen, I think, what seems to be some patterns lately, just the Giants getting real close to the postseason and then not getting in. You could say that is kind of a pattern, but in reality, there's probably nothing that would just be a completely accurate comparison for this season. And additionally, before we say we're like comparing it to 2018 and 2019, right now, I think the different thing is that there's a 6th spot in the postseason. So due to the fact that it's structured a bit differently, we're probably not looking at exactly the same kind of thing. Although the thing that really sticks out in my mind is the 2019 season. It's kind of the thing I use an example a lot of, like what the Giants, what would need to go differently and go better for the Giants. But last year is what we specifically point to when we're talking about the trade deadline. That's something that I've talked a lot about. It was their performance leading up to that event that caused the front office to not add on anything on for the Giants. So that's the comparison there. That it would have to, to go better this year. But in just looking at kind of stuff we can kind of take away. I mean, 2019 was a year where they had a real hot streak, and they just kind of fell off late season. That was accompanied by a whole string of injuries late in the season. Now, some may argue that it was when it was kind of too late anyway that all of that started happening, and that might be kind of the case, but I mean, injuries would be a real postseason opportunity killer there. And you just kind of look at like this one example from 2019. It was just something I remember reading about, I believe it was in July of that year, and it was, I think that it was kind of on the Giants bullpen, and it was specifically talking about reliever Sam Dyson, who was with the team in 2019, and what it said, and Dyson was making like $5 million that year, and what it said was that Dyson was getting pricey for a reliever, particularly for a non-closer. And you just have to hear that and go that that's ridiculous, because for far too long, we know why that is. It's just because of the way all of baseball treats relievers, and the closer is just set off as this really special pitcher in the bullpen that can be an exception, or somewhat of an exception, to the unfair treatment that all the rest of the guys get, and how undervalued they are and all that. And that's what it was saying in that article that I read, and presumably that was the Giants' thought process in 2019. And I mean, they did trade Dyson, and I'm not sure if they had to eat his salary or how that played out, but I'm really just bringing this up to talk about the way they were thinking about it in June or July or whatever month that was. And now, I understand, if you knew that Dyson was going to pitch terribly after he got traded and then injure his shoulder, would you still... I understand it, and no, you wouldn't. I only bring that up to really talk about the thought process there that the Giants were using, and it probably wasn't healthy. And if you're buying into... I'm just saying, from a 2019 perspective, even with just a 5-team postseason, and the Giants had a chance to sneak in and all that, but if you're buying into the false idea that $5 million is a high price for a non-closer reliever, then chances are, if you're kind of a fringe team, you're not going to think about anything else correctly. And it seems like the Giants were way off in a lot of stuff there back then. And this year, hopefully they really do know what to value when it's going to come down to all of that. And you're just thinking back to 2018, and I don't know if that's what this season kind of reminds any of you of, but that year it was just kind of, the Giants were just hanging around the fringes, and we were kind of hoping for contention from them, but they just kind of, as the season progressed, we just had this like slowly growing sense of hopelessness that really burst out on full scene in August and September, as the Giants just were crushed that year. There was no added postseason spot. There were only 5. Not that it would have ultimately made a difference. I just don't quite get that same feeling this year. You know, I think things could go differently, and the Giants could get into the playoffs. This is definitely a hot streak that they're on. We're definitely not. I'm not ready to try comparing this year to 2020. We're so far removed from a 60-game season where it's almost like every game you play is like maybe the equivalent of 3 normal season games kind of compressed into one, although there was a hugely expanded playoff format back in 2020, so that probably isn't a perfect illustration of the process, but that was a close one for the Giants, and that they should have made it at that point too. So we could probably just say that this year the Giants need to really build off of last year and do better, and there are definitely things that could go better, because I thought last year there was a point at which I thought that they would be in, you know, but I mean, it was like they held on to Carlos Rodon at the trade deadline, which clearly indicated that the front office believed there was some kind of a chance, and there might have been an element there where well, they weren't getting the offers they thought he was worth. I don't think that's not going to explain this to the point where I would discard them really thinking the Giants had a chance. Selling would have been a much better option than what they did. Even though buying was the correct way to go, I definitely believe that's the case. But selling would have been a much better option than what they actually did. Still, the acquisition of J.D. Davis is something that really has carried over into 2023. It's if nothing else, the acquisition of J.D. Davis is that was a hit for the Giants. That's really what it appears to have been, because in 2023 he's like performing really great, and he had the RBI double today and all that. So I'm really glad they were able to get him. If not in 2022, then in 2023 he's definitely performing. And I think having players like Davis right now, and I don't want to be negative or anything, but in the future we really don't know what's going to happen to the Giants. I just don't think that they can be wasting these years while they have these good performances. And in particular, this commodity called home run power. The year that they have that, they definitely have that here in 2023, and there are going to be more teams than just the Giants who are either going to be able to say this or make a similar point about something that they've got, but particularly where they're able to hit home runs, it's something that I think right now we just have to say that this can't be wasted, which is something that's so important about this year, And instead of just limiting this to just saying, well, this is an opportunity, although it's certainly that. I mean, you could also just say it in the playoffs, if they could, even if the Giants were the last wild card spot, if they could hit home runs there and really have everybody be on their game for that short period of time, and maybe in that sense they were a clutch team, that might turn into something. I mean, you never know. It really might turn into something. But yeah, so as of right now, the Giants are on a real winning streak, and I was wondering, after the loss on Saturday, it kind of gave me a sinking feeling, like, what if this is over? And it really doesn't appear to have been. That was kind of a bad luck day, but they got it going again, and they played really well today. And I mean, it's a good indication that they might, take this series against the Twins and just kind of build off of that. That they're hot right now, and I think the key is, even if this level of play might not be sustainable over a super long period of time, you're not going to expect the Giants to win 5 or 6 games like every week, but I think just for as long as possible, if they can keep this thing up. And like I said, they've gotten to the point where they're 1 game away, they're 1 win away from tying their record, and this opportunity, it can't, to me, it just can't slip away right now. So I guess that's all for today. Thank you for watching. This has been Giants Baseball 101. Please subscribe if you haven't. Also, please leave your questions and comments. You know where to do it. I'll see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.